Good morning, everyone. I'm Dr. Bharti Garg, Assistant Professor, Department of Public Administration, Punjab University, Chandigarh. Today, I'm going to discuss the topic of training of civil services in India. At the end of this module, you will be able to discuss the meaning, significance, and definitions of training, various methods and types of training, the training of civil servants in India, various bottlenecks in the training system in India, and what are the recommendations of various commissions and committees in India which have been set up to improve the training of civil servants in India. Now, training is a very important component of human resource development. Human resource, which is an important component of any organization, it needs to be upgraded with regard to its skills, knowledge, etc. And so training plays an important role in the development of human resources of an organization. Now, training helps in complementing the education of the person by upgrading his or her knowledge, updating his skills, so that with the changing times and with the change in the position of the person, a person becomes capable to perform at that position. Now, training promotes team spirit in the organization and helps the people in the organization to work in a collaborative way. And thus, training helps in increasing the value of an individual, not just for an organization, but for the society also. Now, friends, we are going to discuss the objectives of training as given by Simon, Smithberg, and Thompson. The very first objective of training is to make the members of the organization more effective, not only for the organization, but also for the society, so that they can contribute their best to the working of the organization, and thus organization can achieve its goals in a better way. Training helps in imparting certain tools and abilities to the individual in achieving its goals. For example, training imparts physical skills, mental abilities, techniques of doing work, value system amongst the people of the organization so that they contribute their maximum to the organization, and thus organization can achieve its goals in a better way. Now we are going to discuss the meaning and definitions of training. The dictionary meaning of the word training is to impart knowledge and skill in particular art, occupation, and vocation. Now in this slide, we have taken up two major definitions of training by Gladden and William Thorpe. If we closely see these two definitions, they carry the same crux, but if we see William Thorpe's definition, which is one of the most important definitions on training, it is a very comprehensive definition. For example, training, according to William Thorpe, is imparting skills, knowledge, values, attitudes in the employees so that their efficiency in the organization increases, and thus training prepares individuals not just for the present jobs but also for the future jobs. A closer analysis of these two definitions clearly shows that training is a conscious process, it is a deliberate process, it is a planned activity. It helps in imparting skills not just for the present job but also for the future jobs, and it has to be carried out in a systematic manner so that employees can benefit the maximum out of the training imparted to them. In this slide, friends, we are going to discuss the significance of training. As you can see in this diagram, the training is associated with skill, knowledge, learning, coaching, mentoring, learning, etc. But if we understand this concept, if we understand the significance of training in a broader manner, we will realize that training goes beyond education, it goes beyond knowledge, and it is a concept which helps in overall development of the individual personality. It is not just imparting skills for the present job, it also prepares individual for the future jobs. It is not just imparting knowledge, it is also about development of individual. It is not just mentoring an individual, but it is also developing relationships, helping individuals to develop relationships not just with the superiors but also with the subordinates, so that all individuals in an organization, they can work as one single unit rather than as in a compartmentalized manner. Now, friends, after discussing the meaning and definitions of training, we are going to discuss the various types of training. As is clear from this very slide, there are different types of training which is imparted to the employees. Now, the type of the training depends on the nature of the work and the objective which the organization intends to achieve. The various types of training can be divided into on-the-job training, off-the-job training, long-term training, short-term training, departmentalized training, centralized training, orientation training, skill training, etc. Now we are going to discuss the details of various types of training. The first training which we are going to discuss now is formal training. Formal training is also known as off-the-job training. Now, why it is called as off-the-job training? Because this training is imparted at a special training center. Now, this training has a clearly specified objective. People have to go to a specific training institute to get training about the work they are doing, the skills that need to be developed, and to understand the situations in an organization. Formal training is imparted in a pre-arranged manner. Proper organized structure is set up for imparting this type of training. Formal training is imparted in a pre-structured manner. It has a predetermined course content and it is imparted through various workshops, seminars, lectures, etc. Formal training is imparted either before entry into the service or during the probationary period of the officer. It may be taken up at a later stage like mid-career training, but the main point remains is that the trainee has to go to a training center to get training. Formal training, it may lead to award of a certificate of the completion of the training program or any other degree which highlights that the trainee has completed a formal training program. The second type of training which we are going to discuss is the informal training or on-the-job training. It is called as on-the-job training because the trainee does not need to go to a specific training center to get training, but he learns while doing the job. It is the traditional method of imparting training to the individual. Since he doesn't need to go to the training center to get training, so this is a slow process of learning and requires long period of experience to learn the skills of the job and various other nuances of performing the duties. Informal training is acquired during experience while the individual is doing work. So it is doing and learning which goes side by side rather than taking an off from the job and performing training. Now, informal training doesn't require any specific time frame or specially selected trainees for imparting training. It is a hard way of learning and it is learning while doing the job. It is learning as the situation comes to an individual and dealing with it as and when a situation comes. So it's giving hands-on experience to the individual rather than going to a simulated training conditions and getting training regarding a particular job. Next training which we are going to discuss is the long-term training and short-term training. Now this depends on the duration of the training. Short-term or long-term depends on duration of the training program. Now if a training program is of 1 month or 2 months or at the maximum 3 months, it is called as short-term training. And long-term training can be of 6 months duration or more than that. Now, the duration of the training program depends on the nature of the service, the nature of the work which an officer is required to perform. For example, training imparted to Indian Foreign Service officers, it goes from 2 to 3 years. So that's a long-term training. Though short-term and long-term, the duration is a relative term. It depends how much time is taken to impart a particular training program. Next training which we are going to discuss is the centralized training and departmental training. The major difference between centralized training and departmental training is that in centralized training, employees of various departments are assembled at one training center, one centralized training center, and they are imparted training. Whereas in the departmental training, the employees of one department are imparted training in the department itself. The senior employees of the department, they impart training to the employees of the department. The main aim of the departmental training is to enhance the skills of the employees of the department so that they can contribute their best to the organization. Next type of training is skills and vocational training. Now, skill or vocational training is the training which is imparted to enhance the skills of the employees. For example, training imparted to officers of Indian Audit and Account Service, income tax officers, or police inspectors. Since they are to perform one specialized skill, so it is important that they be imparted effective training in enhancing those skills of the employees. So the skill or vocational training helps the employees in enhancing the skills which they are required to perform in a particular job. Next type of training which we are going to discuss is the background training. Now, the main purpose of background training is to impart understanding of the socio-economic, political structure of the society and the understanding of political system of the country. For example, training imparted to IAS probationers at Lal Bahadur Shastri National Academy of Administration. Now, the main purpose of imparting this type of training to IAS probationers is to apprise them of the socio-economic, political, cultural setup of the country, since they are to deal with all aspects of the society while performing the job. So, in a way, background training prepares IAS probationers. It creates a background in them that in which kind of setup are they going to work when they will be confirmed in service. The next type of training is the orientation training. Now, the main purpose of orientation training is that the employee in an organization is adjusted to the organization. The orientation training apprises the employees about the aims and objectives of the organization, how an organization works, what kind of environment prevails in an organization, so that he can adjust well in an organization. For example, Institute of Rural Development in Hyderabad, it imparts orientation training to IAS officers about the rural development programs being run in the country. So it orients the officers towards the rural development programs which are there in the country. So orientation training helps an employee in an organization to adjust to the environment of organization. Now we are going to discuss training methods and techniques. Now, these training methods and techniques can be classified into on-the-job training methods and techniques and off-the-job training methods and techniques. Firstly, we are going to discuss on-the-job training methods and techniques. As this slide shows, there are a number of techniques through which on-the-job training is imparted, like coaching, conference leadership, critical incident method, committee assignments, etc. Firstly, we'll take up coaching. Now, it is the most traditional form of imparting training to the employees, which means imparting instructions by the superior to the subordinate trainees. It is done on daily basis, and the main purpose is to coach, to guide the trainees with regard to various aspects of the job, the duties they have to perform, the rules and procedures of the job, and how they have to deal with different situations coming in front of them while performing the duties of job. Second technique is conference leadership. Now, the main purpose of conference leadership technique of training is to develop problem solving and decision making skill amongst the employees. Now, under this technique of training, all the trainees from different departments, they are assembled at one place and they are given a problem. They discuss the problem, analyze the problem in a meeting or a conference. The most important aspect of conference leadership is that the trainer does not give any inputs with regard to the problem. All the aspects of the problem, they are taken up by the trainees, discussed, and the trainer only gives the feedback with regard to what all the trainees have discussed and whatever conclusions they have reached. It is a most important and widely used method of training, especially in developed countries like United States of America. The third technique of training is career planning and guidance. The main purpose of career planning and guidance is to help individual reach the highest potential in his career. So the organization, it has already designed a career plan for the employee, and thus by imparting different types of training, it helps the employee reach highest level in his career. The next type of training is the position rotation. It is one of the most important techniques of on-the-job training. Now, it means that employees, they are rotated on different positions while they are getting training. It means that, for example, a lower level employee, he may be asked to perform the duties of a higher level employee, or a higher level employee may be asked to perform the duties of a lower level employee. So this position rotation, that is rotating from one position to another position and in a way performing the duties of those positions, it helps in better understanding the situation of other employees and dealing with the problems and situations of that position in a better way. So position rotation helps in better understanding between various levels of the employees in an organization. The next technique of on-the-job training is committee assignments. Now the trainees are divided into various committees which may be ad hoc or which may be regular. Problems are given to the committees and then they discuss those problems while having face-to-face interaction with each other. Face-to-face interaction is the most important aspect of committee assignment because through this the employees learn to be more adjusting and adapting to the views of the others in an organization. They learn how to adjust and then they learn how to listen to what others are saying. This helps employees becoming more tolerant of each other and respecting the views of the other in an organization. Now, another technique of on-the-job training is the critical incident method. This method was developed by Paul Piggers. These days, this method is used widely in organizations for imparting training to the employees. Under critical incident method, the superior officer keeps record of all the critical incidents happening in an organization, which may be good or bad incidents. Now, when the training is imparted to the trainees, those incidents are given to the trainees. Once those incidents are given to the trainees, the role of the superior officer ends and the trainees are asked to study the problem closely, to analyze the problem closely, how they view the problem, and then jot down the points and come to a conclusion how they would have solved that problem. After doing this, the employees, they assemble together and jot down the points regarding that incident that has happened in the past. The employees are not told about how decisions were reached in the past or what decisions were reached. They are just given a problem and they have to apply their mind to discuss that problem. Now friends, we have till this point discussed the meaning, significance of training, definitions of training, types of training, and we have now discussed various techniques of on-the-job training. Now the next aspect of the presentation is about techniques of off-the-job training. As this slide shows, there are different methods through which off-the-job training is imparted to employees, like conferences, simulation, role-playing, lecture method, sensitivity method, and group discussion methods. Now we are going to discuss the details of off-the-job training method. The first training technique is the lecture method. Now friends, this is the oldest and the simplest way of imparting training. Under this training method, the trainees are assembled in a classroom. The resource person comes and delivers a lecture on a particular topic. Now, it is a traditional way of imparting training and apprising the trainees about various aspects of the job, various skills required to perform the job. Now, under this method, it can be one-way method of communication where the resource person is delivering a lecture. He may or may not invite questions from the trainees. The second technique of off-the-job training is group discussions. It is these days very popular method of imparting training to the employees. Now, under group discussion method, the group of trainees, they are given a topic and then they discuss that topic in a group. The trainees, they may speak for or against the group, but every participant of the group has to participate in the discussions. It is a very important method of imparting training because it helps in developing the communication skills of the employees, it helps in judging the confidence level of the employees, and it also helps in enhancing the knowledge of the employees with regard to a particular topic. The next method of training is the syndicate training method. Now, syndicate is a group of 3 to 5 trainees. Now, under the syndicate method, the syndicate, that is the group of 3 to 5 trainees, they are given a topic. And under the instructions of their supervisor, the group of trainees, they carry out research on that topic. Research is about collecting data about the problem, studying the problem, and trying to find out solutions with regard to the problem. So this helps the trainees in having a wider perspective with regard to a problem and to be in touch with their supervisor. Under the guidance of the supervisor, they carry out this kind of research, they carry out study of that research problem. The next training technique is the case study method. Under this, the trainees are given a case. Case is any situation or problem which has already happened in an organization. The trainees, after carrying out the in-depth study of the case file, discusses the problem with their supervisor or with the trainer and tries to understand how a particular problem makes an impact, what is that problem, how that was solved, and what is their take on that problem. So it helps in widen the perspective of the employees while being on the jobs. Next training technique is the conference leadership method. Now, conference leadership method is used for the training of supervisory and managerial staff, which is undertaken under the guidance of the trainer. The group of trainees, they are given a problem or any area of discussion and they confer, that is, they discuss that topic under the guidance of the trainer. The trainer actively participates in the discussions, it guides the discussions and carries forward various viewpoints with regard to that discussion. So in this way, with the collective approach, with the group-centered approach, with the participation of the trainer and the trainees, the topic is being discussed upon and various views on that topics, they are taken up and the problem is being understood. So this helps in understanding of the employees. They understand the various situations of the organization, what others think about a particular problem, and they try to come to a solution of that problem. The next method of training is role-playing and simulation, given by Moreno. Under this method, simulated conditions are created at the training institution and employees are asked to play the role of others. So under artificial conditions, when the trainees, they play the role of other officers, they understand each other's situation in a better way. They tend to understand the responsibilities and hurdles which others face while performing their duties. So this training technique helps employees in better understanding each other and having cordial relations in an organization. The last technique of imparting training is the sensitivity method, which was given by Chris Argyris. Now, this objective of the sensitivity training method is to sensitize the employees towards each other's feelings, etc. Under sensitivity training method, the employees of different levels, they come together and discuss their views about various problems or the situations in the organization very openly. The main purpose is that employees of all the levels, senior, junior, lower level, they come together and then they speak openly about their situations. So that is why this method is known as sensitivity method. That is to sensitize the employees at various levels about each other's situations, whether one is working at top level, middle level or lower level. Now, we all know training is very important for an organization. Government of India has also recognized the importance of training the employees in an organization, and in line with that understanding, Government of India has given a national training policy in the year 1996. If we see the National Training Policy 1996, then it clearly recognizes the importance of training the employees in an organization, and it recognizes that the main objective of training is to develop the skills of the employees, enhancing the knowledge of the employees, and keeping them up to date with regard to their professional skills and knowledge, and orienting them towards the work culture of an organization. So, recognizing the importance of training, the government recognizes that the training programs should focus on accountability, commitment, awareness, and responsiveness. Friends, now we are going to discuss the current system of training of the civil servants in India with special reference to IAS officers. Now, the training of the civil servants in India goes back to colonial days. The Britishers in India had started the system of training the civil servants. In line with that, various national and state level training institutions were set up. Though training was imparted previously in England and later on it started to be given in India also. After independence, the training was imparted to the civil servants, but it was not in line with the new democratic values of the society and catering to the objective of the state as a welfare state. The training programs were considered more like vocations rather than taken in a serious manner. Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi had given a new orientation to the training programs when he emphasized on 1 week refresher courses for civil servants. All the civil servants were to compulsorily attend these 1 week refresher courses. But the attendance in these training programs was not much, especially after Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi was out of seat and he passed away. The training programs lacked any teeth and they were again treated as vacations rather than taken in a serious manner. Now, there was a dire need to reorient these training programs, and more specifically, the need became all the more important after 1991 when we adopted the policy of liberalization, privatization, and globalization. Though the training programs in India, in theory at least, they focus on reorienting the training programs and focusing on citizen-centric approach, good governance, ensuring transparency in services, etc. But still much more needs to be done. So now we are going to discuss how civil servants are imparted training in India. All the services, they have set up their own special training institutions. For example, All India services, there are 3 in number, IAS, IPS and Indian Forest Service. They have their own special training institutes at the national level. State services have their own specific state training institutions in the states and districts also. Central civil services have their own specific training institutes. For example, Lal Bahadur Shastri National Academy of Administration gives training to IAS officers. In the same way, every state has its own training institutions. The training wing of the Department of Personnel and Training helps in coordinating the national level training institutes and in the implementation of the national training policy in the country. All the candidates selected to All India Services and Group A Central Civil Services, they are required to undergo induction training. Induction training comprises of foundation course and professional course. Foundation training is compulsory for all the probationers, but the content of the professional training, it varies from service to service depending on the nature and objectives of the job to be performed. Friends, we are going to discuss the foundation training for the civil servants. As the name says, foundation training, it lays the foundation of work for the civil servants. It helps the civil servants in having a basic understanding of the functioning of the government. Foundation training is a bridge between the world of education, which the employee has left behind, and to the chaos of the government, in which the civil servant is going to enter. Now, the foundation training course is necessary for all the probationers entering either into All India services or into central services. The basic purpose of the foundation training course is to develop the feeling of esprit de corps amongst the civil servants, to develop basic attitudes which are required to perform the government job, and to have basic understanding of the socio-economic and political environment of the country in which the civil servant is going to step in after the training course. Foundation training course for all the probationers is conducted at Lal Bahadur Shastri National Academy of Administration, Mussoorie. Now, this foundation training course is of 15 weeks duration. This 15 weeks duration is divided into 12 weeks duration, which is devoted to the coursework, which means the study of the subjects like law, history, political science, culture of India, etc. And 3 weeks is devoted to extracurricular activities like village tour, trekking, river rafting, etc. So on the whole, foundation training, it prepares the civil servant to have a basic idea of the nature of the work which he is going to perform after the completion of the entire training program. The remaining part of the 2-year training program is devoted to the professional training. After the completion of the foundation training, the probationers, they leave for their professional institutes. For example, IAS officers, they remain in Lal Bahadur Shastri National Academy of Administration for their professional training. IPS officers, they leave for Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel National Police Academy at Hyderabad. IRS officers, they leave for their training institution at Nagpur. Officers of Indian Audit and Account Service, they leave for Shimla for their professional training. Now, for the IAS officers, they remain at Lal Bahadur Shastri National Academy of Administration, Mussoorie, and their professional training is divided between the academy and the state training, and they are assigned a particular state where they are to serve, and they learn field work while being in the state. Friends, this slide gives a breakup of the professional training schedule of IAS officers. As this slide shows, the professional training course of the IAS officers is divided into 3 parts. Phase 1, which is of 24 weeks, then district training, which is of 24 weeks, and then phase 2, which is of 6 weeks. Along with that, the objectives of each phase are given and the content of each phase is discussed here. The main purpose of phase 1 of the training of the civil servant is to develop attitude amongst the civil servants and asking them to perform those responsibilities which he is to perform during the first 10 years of his service. So, for this purpose, the civil servant is imparted knowledge and education of the subjects like law, public administration, political science, etc. The district level attachment, it provides an officer to have field understanding of the real life situations which are prevailing in the district, and this type of district attachment or district training is imparted by attaching the civil servant with various district level officers like district magistrate, various IAS officers in the district, etc., so that he understands how other officers are performing their duties, what are the situations which an officer faces and how they are being dealt with by other officers. Phase 2, which is of 6 weeks duration, it helps the IAS probationer to reflect on what all he has learned during phase 1 and in district attachments, and this is carried out by undertaking seminars and group discussions. Now, phase 1 and phase 2 of the training is conducted at Lal Bahadur Shastri National Academy of Administration, Mussoorie, and the district attachment is undertaken in a state where an officer is attached. Now, phase 1, which is of 52 weeks, involves 8 weeks of Bharat Darshan, which is conducting the tour of the entire country. Now, the main objective of Bharat Darshan is to have better understanding of the diverse nature of the country and to understand how the unity in diversity works. Though Labasna conducts and coordinates the activities at the state level, but the details of the activities regarding district attachment, they are conducted and organized by the district collector of that very district. Now, phase 2, which is again conducted in the academy, Lal Bahadur Shastri National Academy of Administration. So, it gives inputs how and what all a civil servant has learned during the phase 1 and the district attachment of the training program. The pattern of district training varies from state to state. Some states have devised a structured pattern of district attachment of the civil servant, whereas some states they follow a loosely determined structure of training for the civil servants. No doubt, the training programs which have been designed for the district attachment of the civil servants, they help the civil servant in learning about the various assignments which he is to perform while performing duties in a district, like maintenance of law and order, conducting elections, implementation of various development programs, disaster management, coordinating with the different departments in the district, etc. Now, induction training is a compulsory training which every officer is required to undergo as a probationer. Apart from that, since 1986, when Rajiv Gandhi was the Prime Minister of the country, mid-career training for the civil servants was given a lot of importance, and especially 1-week training programs were designed for the civil servants. So, since then, mid-career training has also acquired a lot of importance, and civil servants at different levels in the hierarchy with different years of service, they are required to undergo different types of mid-career training during their career. So, brief details of those mid-career training programs is given in this slide, ranging from 1 week to 4 weeks training programs. Now, friends, we are going to discuss the bottlenecks in the training program. The very first drawback in the training program of the civil servants in India is the content of the training program. The content of the training programs leaves much to be desired, as the content is not emphasizing on bringing about necessary attitudinal and behavioral changes in the civil servants, which is required to perform the duties of the job in the present scenario, where We are talking of participative governance involving citizens in governance, transparency in governance, and corrupt-free environment. The second bottleneck in the training of the civil servants is the attitude of the senior civil servants. Now, the senior civil servants, they consider training programs as time pass and as going on vacations rather than taking them seriously, and considering that training programs actually impart skills, attitudes, and behavioral patterns in the employee which are necessary to perform the job. So they are considered as side activities. Their attitude, their mindset is that training programs are side activities, not to be taken seriously. The third drawback in the training system is the induction training program. It is believed that the induction training program, though it emphasizes on developing esprit de corps amongst the civil servants, but it is largely continuation of the British era mindset. It is nowhere dealing, or it is nowhere inducting those mindsets in the civil servants which are required for a welfare state. And moreover, the training program does not generate domain expertise and knowledge amongst the civil servants. They are preparing civil servants which are again development of the archaic mindset rather than specialized skills in the civil servants. The next drawback in the training of the civil servants is the neglect of the training of middle and lower level employees. The training programs in the country, they have been emphasizing on top level officials while neglecting the officials working at the middle and the lowest levels. Whereas one must recognize that it is at these levels that citizens firstly come into contact with the government. These are the cutting edge levels, and employees working at these levels, they must be highly motivated, and in fact their training should be given more importance, whereas there is total neglect of the officials working at the middle and lower level of the government. Now friends, we have discussed few of the bottlenecks in the training programs. Now, to overcome these bottlenecks, Government of India has set up various commissions and committees to give recommendations to improve the training system in India. Though various commissions and committees have been set up from time to time, the latest being the Second Administrative Reforms Commission, which has given comprehensive recommendations to improve the training program of civil servants in India. For instance, it has suggested that there should be domain specialization amongst the civil servants. The training programs should focus on generating domain specialization in the civil servants. There should be mandatory foundation training program for all the civil servants. There should be no escape from the foundation training programs. Mid-career training should be given emphasis. Employees at the middle and lower levels should be imparted necessary training so that they remain motivated. And before every promotion, civil servants must attend to some refresher courses so that they are attuned to the fresh posts which they are going to join. Other recommendations of the second ARC include strengthening the network of national and state level training institutions, appointment of experts in the governing boards of these training institutions, motivating the civil servants to acquire higher academic qualifications, so that these aspects, when these aspects are inducted into the training programs and these training institutions are strengthened, the civil servants can be imparted better training, and thus they can give best to the working of an organization. Last but not the least, second ARC has recommended the setting up of the National Institute of Good Governance, whose main job should be to collect, to consolidate, and to compile data regarding good practices prevailing in the country. To conclude, we can say that training is one of the most important components of personnel administration. With increasing the development of the society and with the coming up of new technologies, citizens are expecting better and specialized services from its civil servants, and thus it becomes all the more important that civil servants are imparted training in the right, effective and efficient manner, and thus the government must consider the recommendations of second ARC and various other commissions and committees set up from time to time so that it can refurbish its training programs so as to refurbish its personnel administration in times to come. Thank you.